move on his part. The crystal glasses trembled slightly in my hands as I registered what he'd said. 7 years of working 80-hour weeks, bringing in millions in revenue, creating award-winning strategies that transformed struggling companies into industry giants, all reduced to this vile insinuation. I watched their expressions shift, eyes darting between my face and my body, reassessing everything they knew about me through this new, tainted lens. I stood frozen, my professional accomplishments dissolving into nothing. Then the ballroom doors opened. My husband entered in his formal attire, commanding attention even from those who only recognized him from television. Supreme Court Justice August Reed, the man I'd married before either of us had achieved career success, the relationship I'd kept private to avoid exactly these accusations. Thaddeus's complexion drained instantly. His champagne glass hovered midway to his lips, suspended in shock as realization dawned. I'd never seen terror flash across my director's face before this moment. It was beautiful. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to thank everyone who's been supporting these stories. Many listen without subscribing. If you're enjoying this, please consider subscribing so you don't miss future uploads. The support means everything. Now, let me continue. My name is Eliza Reed, though professionally I've always been Eliza Wilder. At 36, I'd built my reputation as one of the most innovative strategists in corporate consultancy. I'm the quiet one who speaks only when necessary, the observer who notices patterns others miss, the problem solver companies call when everything else has failed. I joined Helix Strategy Group as a junior analyst 9 years ago after graduating at the top of my class. While colleagues networked at expensive restaurants, I developed revolutionary approaches that attracted major clients. My methods weren't flashy, they were effective. Data-driven, psychologically informed, and consistently successful. By year 3, I'd saved 3 major accounts from walking away. By year 5, I'd brought in 7 new Fortune 500 clients. August and I met during our final year of graduate school. He studied law while I pursued business strategy. We connected at a campus debate where we were assigned opposing positions. He won the formal argument. I won his attention. We married 6 months later at a courthouse ceremony with only our closest friends present. When August began his judicial career, we made a mutual decision to maintain separate professional identities. His rising prominence in constitutional law and my growing reputation in corporate strategy existed in different worlds. When he received his nomination to the Supreme Court 3 years ago, we agreed to strengthen our privacy to protect both our careers from claims of favoritism or conflict of interest. "I'll always be your husband first," August had told me on the night of his confirmation, "but the world only needs to see Justice Reed." I hadn't anticipated how that decision would leave me vulnerable. Thaddeus Beck became my director 2 years ago after our previous department head retired. His arrival coincided with my biggest achievement, securing an international contract everyone deemed impossible. The praise from our CEO infuriated him. I noticed small changes at first. Being excluded from meetings, my recommendations questioned publicly, clients redirected to other strategists. Then the whispers began. Such a shame how she advanced. I overheard him tell a board member, "Some skills don't appear on resumes." I confronted him privately. "If you have concerns about my performance, address them directly." "Don't be paranoid, Eliza," he replied with a practiced smile. "I value every member of our team equally." The rumors intensified after I landed the Neurotech account a client Thaddeus had been pursuing unsuccessfully for years. My approach, focusing on sustainable growth rather than quick profit, had appealed to their leadership. The morning after the announcement, Lyndon from accounting stopped me in the hallway. "I need to warn you," she whispered. "Thaddeus is telling everyone you couldn't have achieved this legitimately." "What exactly is he saying?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "That you're sleeping with Neurotech's CEO. That it's how you've always moved ahead." Each promotion intensified his campaign. Each client meeting became a battlefield where I constantly proved myself while fighting invisible accusations. I documented everything, every email, every conversation where he undermined me, every instance where I was excluded despite being the most qualified person for the project. I never confronted him again. Instead, I worked harder, smarter. I built a network of allies within the company who knew my work ethic. I maintained detailed records of every contribution, every innovation, every dollar I brought to the company. But the whispers continued, spreading beyond our firm. At industry events, I noticed the sidelong glances, the sudden silences when I approached groups where Thaddeus had been speaking. My reputation, built on years of excellence, was being systematically dismantled. The rumors reached August through a clerk who'd interned at Helix before joining his staff. He came home one evening to find me staring at my laptop, reviewing client data through tears of frustration. "What's wrong?" he asked, loosening his tie. I hadn't told him about Thaddeus's campaign against me. August carried enough burdens with his position. But that night, everything spilled out. The rumors, the sabotage, the humiliation of having to prove myself repeatedly despite my record. August listened silently, his expression darkening with each detail. When I finished, he didn't offer empty reassurances or suggest I quit. Instead, he asked a simple question: "When is your next company event?" "The annual industry gala next week." "Why?" "Invite me," he said. I stared at him. We agreed to keep our marriage private professionally. Some principles matter more than privacy. His voice was quiet but determined. "I won't stand by while someone destroys what you've built." The week before the gala crawled by, Thaddeus assigned me to host our newest potential clients, executives from 3 international corporations, considering 7-figure contracts with Helix. I prepared extensively, knowing they would be closely evaluating not just our services but me personally. The evening of the gala arrived. I wore a deep green dress, elegant but conservative. August would arrive separately, later in the evening. We had discussed our approach carefully. No dramatic confrontation, no scene that could reflect poorly on either of us professionally. Just truth, strategically revealed. The ballroom of the Avington Hotel glittered with crystal chandeliers and the jewelry of industry elites. I guided my group of potential clients through introductions, maintaining perfect professional composure despite the knot in my stomach. 2 hours into the event, Thaddeus appeared at my side. "Eliza, let me take over with our guests," he said smoothly. "The CEO wants to speak with you about the quarterly projections." It was a lie. I had just spoken with our CEO near the bar, but I nodded and stepped away. From across the room, I watched Thaddeus lean in, conspiratorially toward the clients I'd been cultivating for months. I didn't need to hear the words to know what he was implying. Their expressions told me everything. That's when the ballroom doors opened and August entered. At 41, my husband commands attention without seeking it. His presence carries the weight of his position without arrogance. Conversations paused as people recognized him, wondering why a Supreme Court justice would attend an industry gala for corporate strategists. I moved toward him, aware of every eye tracking my path. Thaddeus watched in confusion, then growing horror as August extended his hand to me. The terror spreading across my director's face was the first moment of satisfaction I'd felt in months. "Eliza," August said warmly, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "I apologize for being late. Court proceedings ran longer than expected." I took his hand, my voice steady. "I'd like you to meet some people." We moved through the crowd toward Thaddeus and the clients. Each step felt like reclaiming ground that had been stolen from me. My director attempted to retreat, but I gently touched his arm. "Thaddeus, I'd like to introduce my husband," I said. The clients looked between us in confusion, then shock as recognition dawned. Thaddeus's mouth opened, but no words emerged. "Justice Reed," one client stammered. "It's an honor." August smiled pleasantly. "The honor is mine. I rarely get to attend events in my wife's world. She's quite remarkable, isn't she?" The emphasis on wife lingered in the air. Thaddeus swallowed hard, his eyes darting toward the exit. "We've actually met before," August continued, focusing on Thaddeus. "Your company's workplace discrimination case files crossed my desk yesterday. Quite a fascinating pattern of allegations." Thaddeus stuttered. "What case files?" 5 former female employees have filed a joint lawsuit claiming systematic discrimination and defamation. Their evidence includes recorded conversations of you making remarkably similar accusations about any woman who outperformed expectations. August's tone remained conversational, but his words cut through the ambient noise of the gala. I've recused myself naturally, but I found the digital evidence particularly compelling. The clients stepped back slightly, creating distance between themselves and Thaddeus. I felt a wave of vindication watching the man who had tried to destroy my reputation scramble to salvage his own. Those are baseless accusations, Thaddeus managed. The commission might disagree, August replied, especially after reviewing those message threads where you discussed putting ambitious women in their place with other executives. I believe they're examining those tomorrow. The murmuring crowd now included 3 members of the Ethics Commission. As Thaddeus stood paralyzed, my phone illuminated with a notification. The first news alert about the lawsuit had just published. I showed him the screen. Every woman you've targeted provided evidence. We didn't sleep our way anywhere, but you're about to fall based entirely on your own words. What happened next would change everything about my career, my privacy, and the power dynamics I'd navigated for years. The expression on Thaddeus's face transformed from terror to something far more dangerous, the cornered look of someone with nothing left to lose. "You have no idea what you've done," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "No idea who you're really dealing with." Before I could respond, he turned to the gathering crowd with a smile that sent chills through me. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "since we're sharing secrets tonight, I believe there are a few more you should know about Eliza Wilder. Or should I say, Eliza Reed." The room fell silent as Thaddeus reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. Whatever he was about to reveal, I realized with growing dread, he had been saving it for precisely this kind of moment. "Before Justice Reed arrived," Thaddeus continued, "I was explaining to our potential partners about Eliza's unconventional methods. Let me demonstrate exactly what I meant." He turned the screen toward the clients, then began passing it around. With each person who viewed it, I watched their expressions change from curiosity to shock. What had Thaddeus been collecting? What was he showing them? August stepped forward. "That's enough." "No," Thaddeus replied. "I don't think it is. The Supreme Court's Ethics Committee might find these interesting as well. After all, conflicts of interest work both ways, don't they, Justice Reed?" The room spun around me as I realized this confrontation had just escalated beyond anything we had prepared for. Thaddeus hadn't just been spreading rumors, he'd been building a case against me. Against us. And whatever evidence he thought he had, he believed it powerful enough to threaten a Supreme Court justice. August's expression didn't change, but I felt his hand tighten around mine. We had walked into something far more complex than workplace rumors. As the phone made its way through the crowd toward us, I braced myself to discover exactly what Thaddeus had been hiding, and what I would have to do to protect everything I'd built. The phone reached my hands. On the screen was an email chain between August and the CEO of Neurotech, dated 2 days before I secured the account that had triggered Thaddeus's most vicious rumors. The subject line read, "Regarding Helix Strategy Group and Eliza Wilder." My heart stopped. I scrolled through the exchange, seeing August introducing himself as my husband to Neurotech's CEO, mentioning he'd heard they were considering strategic partners, and suggesting they give Helix, specifically me, consideration based on my track record. It was a personal reference. Nothing more. Nothing unethical. Nothing that overstepped professional boundaries. But in Thaddeus's hands, carefully edited and stripped of context, it appeared that August had used his position to influence business decisions in my favor. "This proves nothing," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Doesn't it?" Thaddeus's confidence grew as he addressed the room. "A Supreme Court justice using his influence to secure contracts for his secret wife? I wonder how many other clients received similar persuasion. The Ethics Committee might—" "That's quite enough manipulation for one evening," came a new voice from behind us. We turned to see Nadia Emerson, CEO of Neurotech, standing with a glass of sparkling water in her hand. Her unexpected presence silenced the room. She moved toward us with the confident stride that had helped build her company into a technological powerhouse. "Mr. Beck, is it?" she asked, though she clearly knew who he was. "I'm curious why you're sharing private correspondence without context, especially when you've edited out key elements." She turned to the gathered clients and pulled out her own phone. The full email exchange included Justice Reed identifying himself as Eliza's husband for transparency, explicitly stating he was reaching out as a private citizen, and noting that he would understand completely if they chose not to respond to avoid any appearance of impropriety. My response thanked him for his transparency and informed him that we were already evaluating Helix's proposal on its merits alone. Nadia's gaze swept the crowd. We chose Miss Wilder's strategy because it was superior, period. I find it disturbing that someone would deliberately misrepresent this interaction for professional sabotage. Thaddeus's moment of triumph crumbled. I watched his confidence fracture as Nadia continued. In fact, Mr. Beck, your proposal to Neurotech was rejected because it recommended aggressive cost-cutting measures that would have compromised product quality. Ms. Wilder's approach preserved quality while finding efficiencies elsewhere. That's why she succeeded where you failed. Nadia's words were precise, professional, and devastating. Thaddeus attempted to recover. That may be your interpretation, but… It's not an interpretation, Nadia interrupted. It's documented fact. Just as it's documented fact that you attempted to contact me privately after we signed with Helix, to suggest that Miss Wilder was unqualified. You implied she had secured our business through improper means. I terminated that conversation immediately and reported it to your CEO. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Several people moved away from Thaddeus, creating a visible circle of isolation around him. Mr. Beck, August said quietly, defamation has legal consequences beyond workplace discipline. This isn't over, Thaddeus hissed, but his bravado had evaporated. He backed away, then turned and pushed through the crowd toward the exit. The tension in the room gradually dissipated as conversations resumed. Several people approached to express support, including two of the clients Thaddeus had been poisoning against me. Nadia exchanged contact information with them, casually mentioning how pleased Neurotech had been with my strategies. As the evening continued, I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. The public support was gratifying, but the damage to my privacy was done. Everyone now knew about my marriage to August. The separation of our professional lives, something we had maintained for important reasons, had been shattered in a single evening. Later that night, as we drove home in silence, August finally spoke. I'm sorry, Eliza. My suggestion to attend the gala created exactly the situation we've always tried to avoid. No, I replied, staring out the window at the passing streetlights. Thaddeus would have escalated his campaign regardless. At least this way, we controlled some of the narrative. What happens now? I turned to look at my husband, this brilliant, principled man who had stood beside me tonight. Now I finish what Thaddeus started. The next morning, I received a message from our CEO requesting an immediate meeting. When I arrived at his office, he wasn't alone. Our chief legal counsel and the head of human resources sat beside him, their expressions grave. Eliza, the CEO began. First, let me apologize for what you've experienced under Thaddeus's leadership. We were unaware of the extent of his behavior until recently. Until the lawsuit, I clarified. The CEO nodded. The 5 former employees filed jointly last week. Their evidence is substantial. We've placed Thaddeus on administrative leave pending investigation. I appreciate that, I said carefully. However, the legal counsel interjected. We need to discuss your situation. Your relationship with Justice Reed creates certain complications. My marriage has never influenced my work, I stated firmly. We're not suggesting it has, the CEO assured me. But perception matters in our industry. Clients might question whether your connection to Justice Reed gives Helix an unfair advantage. I understood the subtext immediately. They weren't firing me, but they were preparing to distance themselves from any controversy. After 9 years of exceptional service, I was becoming a liability. What are you proposing? I asked. A lateral move, the HR director suggested. Same compensation, but in a research position with less client contact until this situation resolves. A demotion disguised as a transfer. After everything Thaddeus had done, I was the one being penalized. I need time to consider my options, I said, rising from my chair. Of course, the CEO replied. relief evident in his voice. Take the week. We value your contributions, Eliza. We just need to manage this situation carefully. I walked out of that office with perfect composure, collected my laptop and a few personal items from my desk, and left the building. In my car, I finally allowed myself a moment of pure, unfiltered rage. Thaddeus had done this, destroyed my privacy, damaged my professional standing, and forced me to choose between retreat and confrontation. That evening, when August returned home, I had spread dozens of documents across our dining table. Financial records, emails, performance reviews, client testimonials, 9 years of my professional life laid bare. "What's all this?" he asked. "Evidence," I replied without looking up. "I'm not accepting their offer to hide me away." August studied the papers. "You're building a case." "I'm taking control of the narrative." I finally met his eyes. Thaddeus didn't just attack me on a personal level. He systematically undermined the achievements of every successful woman at Helix. 5 have already come forward, but there are more. How many more? 11 that I've identified. Women who left the company after encountering similar obstacles. 3 were on partner tracks before Thaddeus arrived. None made it. August sat down beside me. "What do you need from me?" "Nothing," I said honestly. "This isn't about using your position. This is about using mine, the connections I've built, the respect I've earned, the strategies I've developed. I'm going to dismantle what Thaddeus created, but I'll do it my way." The next day, I called Nadia Emerson and requested a meeting, not as a consultant, but as someone seeking advice. She invited me to her office that afternoon. "You're not planning to sue Helix," she observed after I explained my situation. It wasn't a question. "No," I confirmed. "Lawsuits drag on for years. They drain resources and attention. And ultimately, they don't change systems." "So what are you planning?" "I'm creating a new system," I said simply. "I've identified 11 women who left Helix after experiencing discrimination similar to mine. Each possesses exceptional skills that Helix undervalued. Together, we represent expertise across every aspect of strategic consulting." Nadia's expression shifted from curiosity to interest. "You're starting a competing firm." "I'm creating an alternative," I corrected. "One built on the principle that talent deserves recognition regardless of gender. One where achievement is measured by results, not relationships." "That requires capital," Nadia noted, "and clients willing to take a chance on a new entity." "Yes," I agreed. "It does." Nadia studied me for a long moment, then smiled. "Neurotech's contract with Helix includes a clause allowing us to follow key personnel if they leave the company. Did you know that?" "I wrote that clause," I admitted. "Standard protection for clients to ensure continuity of service." "How convenient." Nadia reached for her tablet and began typing. "I'm sending you contact information for 3 other CEOs who have expressed frustration with their current strategic partners. All 3 value innovation over tradition. All 3 would appreciate your approach." By the end of the week, I had secured preliminary commitments from 7 former Helix employees to join my venture. Each brought unique expertise and their own client relationships. Each had a story about Thaddeus or the culture he had fostered. Together, we represented over 50 years of combined experience that Helix had discarded or devalued. I hadn't responded to the CEO's offer of a lateral move. Instead, I prepared my resignation letter, effective immediately. August supported my decision completely, though we both understood the risks of starting a new business. "This isn't just about leaving Helix," I told him as I finalized my business plan. "It's about creating something better." "I know," he replied. "That's why you'll succeed." 3 weeks after the gala, I launched Prism Strategies with 9 founding partners, all women who had left Helix under Thaddeus's leadership. We secured office space in a renovated industrial building across town. Our founding principle was simple: excellence recognized and rewarded, regardless of gender or background. News of our launch spread quickly through industry channels. By our 3rd day of operation, we'd received inquiries from 15 potential clients, including 3 who were currently contracted with Helix. Nadia publicly announced Neurotech's decision to follow me to Prism. citing exceptional results from my previous strategies. Then came the moment I had been quietly preparing for. Thaddeus, still on administrative leave but confident in his eventual reinstatement, filed a lawsuit against me alleging breach of contract, client poaching, and defamation. His legal team demanded emergency injunctions to prevent me from contacting any Helix clients. He expected me to fight back through legal channels, a process that would drain Prism's limited resources and distract me from building my new company. He expected fear and retreat. He didn't expect what happened next. I called a press conference, not to defend myself against his accusations, but to announce Prism's Advancement Initiative, a program providing mentorship, resources, and capital to women starting businesses after experiencing workplace discrimination. Our first recipient, Lyndon from accounting, who had warned me about Thaddeus's rumors and subsequently been passed over for promotion 3 times despite outstanding performance reviews. Prism Strategies believes that talent deserves opportunity. I told the assembled reporters, we're committing $1 million over 5 years to help women rebuild careers after experiencing systematic barriers to advancement. The announcement generated extensive coverage. 3 major business publications requested interviews about the initiative. During those conversations, I never mentioned Thaddeus by name. I didn't need to. His lawsuit against me became part of every story, the perfect illustration of the problem our initiative aimed to address. Potential clients noticed. Within days of the press conference, our inquiry list doubled. 2 women who had declined my initial invitation to join Prism reached out to reconsider. Most significantly, Helix's board of directors called an emergency meeting to discuss the company's public image crisis. 2 days later, Thaddeus was terminated. The official statement cited conduct inconsistent with company values, but everyone in the industry understood the real message. Helix was cutting losses. Thaddeus's lawsuit against me was withdrawn the same day. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt determined. This wasn't just about punishing one man for his actions. It was about changing the environment that had protected him for so long. 6 months after launching Prism, we had grown to 23 employees and secured contracts with 15 major clients. Our revenue exceeded first-year projections by 40%. The Advancement Initiative had supported 6 women in launching their own businesses, creating a network of mutual support and opportunity. Helix, meanwhile, struggled. After Thaddeus's departure, 3 more senior strategists left to start their own ventures. Clients began questioning the company's stability. Their stock price declined steadily as analysts noted their difficulty retaining top talent. On the anniversary of the Gala, where everything had changed, August and I attended the same event, this time openly as husband and wife. I now represented Prism Strategies, a rising force in the industry. As we entered the ballroom, conversations paused briefly before resuming with increased energy. Nadia approached us immediately. Eliza, perfect timing. There's someone you should meet. She guided us toward a small group near the windows. Have you been introduced to the new CEO of Helix? The woman who turned to greet us was familiar, Vivian Reeves, one of the 5 plaintiffs in the original discrimination lawsuit against Thaddeus. After the case settled, Helix's board had made the surprising decision to promote from within, choosing Vivian to lead the company's transformation. Eliza, Vivian said warmly, extending her hand. I've been hoping to speak with you. Congratulations on your appointment, I replied sincerely. Thank you. It's been illuminating. Her smile held a hint of irony. I've spent the past 3 months untangling the damage Thaddeus caused. The board finally recognized they had a systemic problem, not just one bad actor. And now? I asked. Now we rebuild, Vivian said, with a focus on merit rather than gender, with transparency rather than whispers. She glanced at the crowd around us. Some things had to be dismantled before they could be reconstructed properly. Later that evening, as August and I prepared to leave, I noticed a familiar figure standing alone near the bar. Thaddeus had aged visibly in the past year. His once confident posture had diminished. According to industry gossip, no major firm would hire him after details of the lawsuit became public. He had eventually found position at a small regional consultancy. a dramatic step down for someone who had once directed strategy for multinational clients. Our eyes met across the room. For a moment, I considered approaching him, not to gloat, but to acknowledge the strange symmetry of our situations. A year ago, he had tried to destroy my reputation with whispers and insinuations. Now he stood alone, his own reputation in ruins, while I led a thriving company built on the very talent he had tried to suppress. Instead, I simply nodded once in his direction, then turned away. My revenge wasn't in his downfall, but in what rose from the ashes of his destruction, a new model of success, a community of support for those he had harmed, a transformation of the system that had protected him. As we walked toward the exit, August took my hand. "Are you satisfied with how things turned out?" he asked quietly. I considered the question carefully. "Not satisfied," I finally replied. Determined. This was never just about Thaddeus or Helix or even my career. It was about changing what happens when someone says, "She slept her way to the top." "And have you changed it?" I looked back at the ballroom. At Vivian leading Helix in a new direction. At Nadia speaking with 2 recipients of Prism's advancement initiative. At the industry that had begun, slowly but perceptibly, to evolve. "We've started," I said, "and that's enough for now. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, thank you." Stories like mine happen every day in workplaces around the world. Talented people facing barriers built from whispers and assumptions rather than facts. If this resonated with you, please consider subscribing to hear more stories of justice and transformation. Your support helps these narratives reach those who need them most. Remember that real change doesn't always come from destroying what exists, but from building something better in its place.